And so, and that looks different for everybody. It doesn't. Not everybody goes and lives in the mission field long term. Not everybody adopts a child, but we are all called to minister in those ways and do those things. And so. Her faith is so strong, and she challenges me. You know, we're all as men.
Right.
The Bible says we're supposed to be the leader of our households, and lead spiritually in our household. And when you have a wife like Megan, that's hard because she's so strong in her faith, and it's hard sometimes not for that to get turned upside down.
Oh, no doubt.
And she's pulling me
for
like,
sure.
"Are you in the Bible right now? What have you been doing right now?"
Absolutely.
So that's the kind of person that she is, and just incredibly supportive of all these kind of twists and turns that we've taken, and just trusting in God's plan and in my vision for where we're going as a family, not just as a business. And so. She's great. She's the communications director for Lifeline Children's Services, the adoption agency here in Birmingham now.
Gotcha.
And so we're in the process of adopting personally right now.
That's what we were just talking about. So you guys just got back from Colombia. Tell us about that trip.
Yeah, we went down to an orphanage there that we're actually adopting out of. And my wife turned 30 this year, and that was kind of her one ask. She wanted to be able to take her family down to Colombia and see this orphanage that we're going to adopt out of, because adoption is it's a family thing. And, it's one of those things that growing up, similar to, I would say, foreign missions, that I would hear somebody come to my church once a year and talk about it, and I would say to myself, thank God whoever that is called to that. Now, I'm not called to that, but I'm going to support them with a little bit of it.
Give them money.
That's right. That's right.
Pray for you.
That's right. And it's another thing where until you only know the universe you've been exposed to, and until here in Birmingham we go to the Church of Brook Hills, and that's part of the culture of Brook Hills, is both foreign missions and a heart for widows and orphans. Yeah. And so when I start meeting people who are really just no different than I am, and they are going out into the foreign mission field, or they are adopting children, or they're fostering children, and then suddenly thinking, well, they're really not, I know them, they're normal people. They're not superheroes.
Right.
And maybe that's something that we could do too. And realize if you really read what the Bible has to say about those things, these are not options. We're called. I mean, you think about especially missions, it's pretty clear, go therefore and make disciples of all nations. It doesn't say if you're called. And it's like, no, I'm calling you, go therefore and do it. And so, and that looks different for everybody. It doesn't. Not everybody goes and lives in the mission field long term. Not everybody adopts a child, but we are all called to minister in those ways and do those things. And so, that is something we've been walking through, and my wife has struggled some with infertility. And I think the moment that really kind of, well, we had talked about adoption, but if my wife was being very honest and vulnerable, and I think she wouldn't mind me sharing this as part of our story, is there's that nagging question in the back of your mind, or there can be, is will I love my adopted child the way that I would love a biological child? Right. And my wife, I was working in the White House at the time, and I couldn't go, but she went to Ethiopia on a mission trip that included went into working in an orphanage there. Gotcha. And she saw those kids. Yeah. And even those kids who she knows are not going to be part of her family, immediately just like the love and wanted to help these children in anything that you can do. And it broke her heart. God broke her heart. And she, after that trip, said, you know what, I have no question that I'm going to love our adopted child the way that I would love any biological child. And so then we kind of really jumped headfirst into the adoption process. And so when she turned 30 this year, that was her one ask: go to Colombia, take her family down there and see the orphanage. And so it was a great experience to be able to work with those kids, and a really cool setup down there. About 100 kids between the ages of 0 and 15. And just doing extraordinary work down there. And I'm learning too that a lot of these children, it's not just psychologically difficult when they go through this. It's actually physiologically there are problems. So like the way that your brain is wired, 95% of brain development happens in the first 5 years of life.
Yep.
If you insert a traumatic event into those first 5 years of life, what happens physiologically, some of those, this is oversimplification, but the brain doesn't connect in some
Synapses
ways.
and all that,
yes. And so the child we are adopting will be between the ages of 0 and 3.
Right.
But it's gonna. There are tough things that come along with that because children. You don't think about it when you're a parent, but when they're that young, it's totally normal for you to have your child next to you all the time,
right.
Skin to skin contact, just interacting one-on-one, things like that.
Them holding their arms up, yeah.
All the time. And if you're an orphan, even those kids, even this great setup in Colombia, right. There are only so many workers there, and there are 100 kids. And when you go in there to volunteer, you can sense the need for personal one-on-one interaction because they never get it.
Right.
And so that messes with kids' brains. And so anyway, there's a lot we're learning about a lot of things that go along with that, but we're in the middle of the process, and probably I would say fourth quarter of this year, first quarter of next year, we'll have awesome. A little Colombian baby in our house.
Now, do you know the child that you guys do you know them currently? Or is it just a process?
No, and in fact, I didn't work with the 0 to 3-year-olds at the orphanage while we were down there because I felt like I would have been looking at every one of them like, are you going to be my baby? You gonna be my baby? Or then what if you get matched with a child and you're like, wait a second, that kid was a jerk when I was down there. So I'm just going to try. Like if the 2-year-old could be a jerk. Exactly. But I'm just going to trust God with that one. But awesome. I didn't. Megan worked with them some, but I couldn't do it. I stay with the middle school kids.
That's so good.